of your organization so that you're not losing those people and burning those people out. And then creating an ecosystem that is low barrier and accessible to all of your participants. And so that's kind of the start of that conversation. And so that is all that I had, at least initially, to go through today. And I'm gonna introduce you to our first speaker now, who I'm so excited about. Brandon Guidry is a powerful voice for recovery, redemption, and resilience. He's a proud New Orleans native and veteran of the United States Air Force. Brandon has been in recovery for over 7 years after battling addiction, homelessness, and mental health challenges. He is the host of Brothers Brandon SOBERTALK, a podcast that uplifts stories of transformation and healing through faith and community. Brandon recently received a full pardon, a testament to the extraordinary journey he's walked and the lives he continues to impact. As a single father, he leads by example, showing that recovery is not just possible, it's a path to purpose. He frequently speaks in treatment centers and correctional facilities, sharing his lived experience to inspire hope and break the stigma around addiction and mental illness. Grounded in spirituality and driven by service, Brandon is a fierce advocate for those still finding their way, using his story to light the path for others. Please help me welcome Brandon.
Testing. I like to say that Louisiana raised me, the military made me crazy, and North Dakota saved me. There's something about the soil here. So I want to do something real quick before I get started. I want everyone to listen really good. Everyone hear that? Okay, now on the count of 3, I want everyone in here to all clap together. 1, 2, 3. You see the sound difference of all of us together? That's why we're here today. Loneliness is the second offender of people using drugs and alcohol, and affects mental health. Resentments, they say in the 12 steps of recovery, is number 1. So if you've been holding resentments your whole life, most of the times you drink and you do drugs or have mental health problems. So I'm originally from Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, on the West Bank of New Orleans. I started using drugs and alcohol at a young age. That's what, it's a party city, you know? People save their money up for 5 years to go to Mardi Gras for the first time and go to jail for peeing in public. And so it's just a wild, it's a wild city. Right out of high school, I joined the United States Air Force at 17, first time flying on a plane. I went to all my training, and then I got stationed in England for 2 years. And in England, in Europe, you can drink at age 18. So that's when my drinking career really started. Any veterans in the house today? We drink like a sport in the military. Work really hard and drink really hard. So that's where I started drinking, continued throughout my career. I was in Saudi Arabia in 2003, Operation Enduring Freedom, and I was in Iraq in 2005. I survived over 150 attacks, and I came back, and when they did my eval, like, are you having nightmares? I said no to everything, you know. I just wanted to get on leave, on vacation, and get back to partying, you know, with my friends. And so silently, I was suffering from PTSD. I'm not supposed to be 0 to 100 in simple situations, you know. And that's one thing I can look back at now, is that a lot of people, a lot of veterans especially, suffer from that, you know. I understand when I see homeless people on the streets, because I was one of them. 9 times out of 10, some of those people are veterans. They just stuck. They don't know how to get unstuck. So I started suffering. I started self-medicating while I was still in the military. I'm drinking 1/5 of alcohol a day. I'm doing drugs just to feel good inside. So I recommend to everyone that's in recovery or peer support, that you tell people that you should never go back to the place that made you sick in the first place. You should get yourself really well in a safe place and then go back and visit or help people, but keep it moving, because you will get stuck. And so for 10 years, I suffered silently, self-medicating, no medicine, no meditation, no recovery. I started working in the oil field in the Gulf of Mexico, catching a helicopter every 2 weeks, and all you could see is water. We were like pirates. We come home for a week, and we drink and we drug. People started to suggest treatment or recovery programs to me, and my ego was never asked for help, you know, especially in the military. Suck it up and keep moving forward. So that's what I did. Toxic relationship after toxic relationship. And then my real friends and family started to be distant. I started to isolate. We like to call it in recovery fair weather friends. Because my real friends had lives, you know, and they couldn't be out doing the crazy stuff. I didn't know how to turn the switch off. And so I came to North Dakota at the end of 2015. And I didn't know why God was bringing me here. So I had 2 years of turmoil. I like to call it a culture shock or midlife crisis. I came to big old Beulah, North Dakota. And I thought it was going to be ski resorts and the mountains. We arrived the day after Thanksgiving in 2015, and it was frozen tundra. I mean, nothing. And so we started working at the gas plant in Beulah, me and 3 of my buddies from back home. We drove 28 hours up here. And then after weeks of working, not a day off, we got all this money and we get a day off. We go to the big city of Bismarck. And we did like most youngsters would do. We hit the China buffet and started hitting the local bars. And then the 5-star club Bucks, you know? And so I wound up meeting another toxic woman, and she became pregnant. And so I wound up staying here, and everybody else left and looked at me like I was crazy. So I moved to Mandan, North Dakota, and PTSD on 1 million, you know? People kids are screaming, you know? And so what I did was, what all I knew how to do, I started walking to the local bars. I called it therapy, you know? And I started drinking. 30 minutes after drinking, Brother Brandon want drugs. And so I started asking people, you know, shooting pool, man, y'all have pills, or y'all have this, or y'all have that. They said, no, we got this meth, though. And so I started using meth. And every meth bag in the world should have a Surgeon General warning on it. On one side, it should say the devil, and on the other side, it should say you will become homeless. You will go to jail. You will lose everything. And so there started my downward spiral. I never was arrested in my life. I got away with a lot of stuff until I came to North Dakota. But if that would have never happened, I probably wouldn't be standing here today speaking to you. So I started going to jail. I missed my son being born. I went to Mandan jail, and then they shipped me to Stark County. I didn't know where I was at. And I got out, and I swore to myself that I would stay sober and be a dad. That lasted for a couple months. And then I got some money, started working, and then I started drinking. 30 minutes after drinking, Brother Brandon wants drugs. So it was a 2-year cycle. So I'm in and out of jail. I collected 2 felonies and about 7 misdemeanors in a 2-year period. And it just kept getting worse and worse. I had a girl die in my arms. Everything was going wrong. I wound up getting an apartment through community action because I was a veteran. I wound up getting evicted from that apartment 6 months later. How do you get evicted from a free apartment? Drug addicts and alcoholics get evicted from a free apartment. So now I'm really homeless. It's the end of 2017. I'm walking the streets. I used to have this thing where I'd go into the gas station, I'd fix me a hot dog, a fountain drink, grab me a Reese's cup, and I'd walk out without paying. Well, this time it didn't work. I think the restitution on it was like $5.16. Even the judge was like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know." So it was Christmas Eve 2017. It's blizzarding. It's like -40. I'm walking through Bismarck. I'm crying. My hands are freezing. I felt like both of my pinkies were going to fall off. I'm looking in people's windows in their houses, and they're having Christmas Eve. They got the baby, the eggnog, cheerful opening presents. And I looked up at God, and I said, "I'm not supposed to be living like this." And I'm crying. I'm a mess. So I went into the laundromat on the boulevard. It used to stay open 24 hours a day. It was about 2 in the morning. I'm the only person in there, and that's the only place I could find to stay warm. And an angel came in there, a person I'd never seen before and never seen again, and said that the United Way was giving free motel rooms at the Motel 6 because it was so cold to homeless people. So I went to the place they told me to go in the morning, and I got a room at the Motel 6. Now, the whole Motel 6 was packed with nothing but drug addicts and homeless people. Even the drug addicts didn't want to hang out with me. They're like, "Shut the door, here he comes." And the most brokest, darkest time in my life. I remember growing up in the military, drinking, doing drugs, and I would wake up laughing. Now I'm waking up crying. I had a duffel bag full of mail that I didn't even open, court cases, credit collectors, and I didn't even know where to start. So the things that you're doing now and you're associated with really can help a person that's lost. Because if someone is lost, where were they originally headed in the first place? I say that again. If someone is lost, where were they originally headed in the first place? We're here to help those people find their spiritual GPS, to be able to give them a starting point in a new life. So while I was at the soup kitchen one day, a volunteer showed me how to sign up for Medicaid. And back then, all I heard about was Teen Challenge, New Freedom Center, Heartview, I think Share House in Fargo, and that's who I called. Got on a waiting list. I didn't have $1 to my name. I hadn't done my taxes in 10 years. I owed $30,000 in back child support, credit collectors, court cases. I was being revocated for the second time. Everything in my life was going wrong. I couldn't take life anymore. I couldn't go a minute throughout a day without being high or drinking because I had so many problems that I didn't know where to start. So New Freedom Center called the hotel and left me a message. They said, "If you be here Monday morning, we'll do an eval on you and we'll see if you can take it." So that Monday morning, I packed my black garbage bag. How many people have helped people that have their life in a black garbage bag? That's what I surrendered with. In war, people surrender with a white flag. I finally surrendered with a black garbage bag. I walked into New Freedom Center, and the first time in my life as a man, I asked for help. That old man behind the desk said, "Why should we take you here at New Freedom Center?" And I said, "I need help." But I was a mess. I had been up a couple days. I was crying. I was knocking stuff off his desk. I looked like E. Honda off Street Fighter. I had Bruce Lee hands. And so they accepted me. I got to take my clothes out of my black garbage bag, fold it, put it in drawers, and I got to go to sleep on a nice, comfy bunk bed. And then the next day, they woke me up, and they took me to my first recovery meeting. Shoulder to shoulder at the Bismarck Community Church on Tuesday nights. It's a speaker meeting. And when I got there, I didn't know where I was at. A lot of people looked really like happy. They had a glow. They had nice clothes on. I was like, man, that's how I want to be. I'm not supposed to be a bum. And so at age 35, see, I had a lot of rascal in me. It took me till I was 35 to ask someone for help. I just kept trying to, on my own, you know. Self can't help self, not when you're that far lost. You need help from outside entities or spiritually. And so I stayed there for 30 days, and while in New Freedom Center, I found out about Hope Manor Sober Living. So I signed up, got on the waiting list for Hope Manor and Teen Challenge. And Hope Manor came and met with me. And they told me about their facilities. And I was so scared to go back to the streets or to back to the Motel 6 that I was willing to do anything that would save me. I had hit my frozen bottom in life. And you only can say that in North Dakota. You know, most people hit a rock bottom. I hit a frozen bottom. They say hell is hot. I think hell is cold. And so they accepted me. I said, if you give me this one chance, I don't have any money, but as soon as I get a job, I will pay you back. But if you give me this one chance, I won't let you down. And they accepted me. So I moved in a sober living facility with 12 guys. I had to get a job. I had to get a sponsor. I had to start going to 14 meetings a week. And that's what I did. Anyone that you're helping, you should tell them to get a simple job. You don't need a high-paying job when you're trying to restart your life. You just keep a simple paying job and you use the rest of the time to work on yourself, to go to all these different programs, to do different things. And so I got a $10 an hour job and I hated it. But it was the most humbling experience that I ever had because it showed me two things. One, money's not everything. And two, God will provide what you need, not what you want. I don't know how I survived for 3 years, but I did. Riding bicycle, I needed an SR22. Most people do when they're starting rebuilding their life. So I rode bicycle everywhere. The best shape I've ever been in. And, so I started to learn different aspects, like I started to go to church with people. I started to learn meditation and yoga from different people. And I started to go to Sweat Lodge with my Native brothers and sisters. Anything that would keep me from having that emptiness, dark feeling of hopelessness, I was willing to try. And also it was suggested that you should start volunteering. I never did anything for free. I was always like, you don't have my money, you know? And so I started volunteering at the soup kitchen. And it was crazy because I'm on the other side of the counter and the people that I'm serving were some of the people that I was homeless with for a while. And so I don't know how to explain it, but something magical happens when you start volunteering, you start doing things, not expecting anything in return. And so that's what I started doing. It was really hard at first. I even stopped stealing from Walmart. You know, like even if they give you like the wrong change back, the survival mechanism in you wants to not say anything, just take it. But over time, as I started being honest and giving it, that you gave me too much change back. It wasn't easy, but over time, miracles started to happen. I don't know how to explain a miracle. All I can be is an example of one. So I stayed in sober living for 6 months. When I got out, I still didn't have anything, because when you get your first check, everybody wants their money. I worked 2 weeks, my check would be like $69. And so I was able to keep going to the same routine, folding my bedding the same way, not stopping in between, going from point A to point B. So when I went up for my revocation for the second time, they was gonna send me to prison, and they asked you, like, do you have anything, this last words to say? And so I spoke, and they gave me a second chance. So I started recovery, and I went full-fledged into it. I started to go to conferences. I stayed busy and doing things that I never did before. Because I'd build my life up to the ground and burn it down. Build my life up to the ground and burn it down. And that was the cycle that I was stuck in. So I'm here today to tell you that something special is happening in North Dakota. I've tried the VA to assist me. They never gave me any help. I tried to reach out to different avenues, and I didn't get any assistance. The only thing that helped me was these programs that you guys continue to create. I was a hopeless case. At age 35, God came and found me. But he already had a plan sending me to North Dakota. It was disguised by I was going to come here and make a lot of money and take over the world. But he wanted me to reroot myself. It's something in the soil here that you can change your life. And around 3 years sober, the radio show fell into my life, fell into my lap. A guy I know that managed the radio station, he called me up and said, man, I heard you speak a couple times. I think this would be good for you. And I'm forever thankful for that. So I started SOBERTALK in the basement of a church on their radio station. And then I started to meet more and more people, interview more and more people. And I started getting asked to speak in different places. I sponsor and mentor men in prison, men getting out of prison, whoever wants to change their life. Because you can't help everybody. I mean, you're going to put a lot of effort into people, and then they might die, they might relapse, they might whatever, go back to prison. That's not your fault. You can't decide with someone, you can't control that. That's between them and God. And so that's some things I had to learn as well. I wish I had a peer support my whole life, just growing up and everything, somebody just to guide me through. Because when you feel alone and you have to figure out a lot of stuff on your own, that's usually when you make bad decisions. Sometimes you learn from that, but it's a lot better when someone's walking with you, do different things. And so today, I speak in multiple different treatment centers. I speak to the residents. I started going into the prisons about 2.5 years ago. I don't know if y'all ever heard of Hip Hop and Hope. Michael Bloom, right here in Fargo. He reached out to me because he heard me speak on someone else's podcast. And he said, man, I want you to roll with me for some events. He told me about it. And the first day that you walk into a prison is an amazing experience. And they let you out the same day. You know what I mean? So I started going into prisons and doing events all around North Dakota. The first thing I did before that, though, I started going into the county jail in Burleigh County, and I would host AA meetings. And so I started doing that, and then I started doing the prison outreach, and then I started hosting my own events. How that came about, I don't know. It just started happening. So I bring speakers. We just did a barber and speakers event at the Jamestown. Thank you, Brandy. I've done a couple. I did an event at NDSP, the farm, and the women's prison in New England. Today, I can say that I'm not the same person that I used to be. I went to therapy when I first got sober. I seen a psychiatrist. I did all the steps that were granted to me. But the only thing that can really heal us is helping other people. That's our sole purpose in life, is that we're here to help other people. And so that's my life task, is to be an example, and I have a purpose now. I can't say that I'm lost anymore. And in North Dakota, I'm very thankful. I have a lot of relationships, networking, and that's what it's all about. Just like that clap that we did earlier. Now think if you had 1 million people do that clap, or 100,000 people. That's powerful. So as we come together, no matter what organization you're a part of, no matter if you're a peer support, a therapist, whatever, the more that we come together and not be against each other, the more people we can save. Because these epidemics and the statistics of people getting out of prison are steadily rising unless we keep this thing going. And I truly feel that because I watch people get out of NDSP and go to ministry on the margin or wherever they go, and they give them a hotel room at the Bismarck Motor Inn, and you see them walking around, and then a couple weeks later, you see their mugshot again. How does that keep happening? By these programs, by peer support, by people being active in the community and in the state. Because it's not a good time to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. Because you can take one little sip of something, and that's it. You're out of here. And that's the most selfish thing I believe you can do. Because I talk to people that have lost family members or lost children and how it affects afterwards. And it just keeps going, the trauma. And so I've never thought of suicide in my life, but if I was allergic to seafood, I'd have been gone a long time ago. But I had to make y'all laugh. Y'all looking too serious. Got me sweating. But there's a lot of people that went through the same circumstances I did, but they didn't make it, you know? It just so happened that I met the right people at the right time. I had a lot of people that I've sponsored in the years, and the first person that I sponsored and then they relapsed and fell off, I felt like it was my fault, you know? But I stayed sober, you know? It's kind of selfish to say it like that, but I did. And then I just moved on to the next person. And I've mentored a lot of people that have done the same thing every 6 months for 5 years straight, you know? Because that's how my life used to be, because blessings will come. You will get a place, eventually you will get your license back, you will get a job, you will, you know, things will start to come back. But how do you keep it? How do you keep it? At what point did you forget? Because we have these built-in forgetters as addicts and alcoholics. We can go through hell, and then a week later, we forget all the stuff we just went through. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, it happened again. And that's what I try to share to people is that at some point, you're missing something, you know? And what peer supports and programs with reentry, we can help point that out to someone. Not saying everybody's going to listen, but if we point that out to them, maybe they can recognize. If one person recognizes it and it saves their life, that's great. Because I can look back now at my life and see where I would go wrong. You know? They say finances and romances will take you out every time. And I've seen a lot of people like that. I've seen people lose people, pass away, their grandmother, their mom, and they go off the rail. When I speak in prisons, I ask people, how many people in here has been to prison more than once? 90-something% of the people raise their hand. Why is that? Because they didn't have these programs for years and years and years. But the things that are happening today, I truly believe, are helping people. I also volunteer with Evangel Church, and we started a movement in NDSP that helps people and when they get out. Also, the Prison Fellowship Academy. A great man named Eddie that I met. That's a really good program as well. And he has a great story. And I love going to speak to their classes. Because some of those people have life and they're never getting out. They still smile. You know what I mean? They still find a peace and a happiness in themselves like they're going to get out one day. And I know multiple guys like that. And when they told me how many years they had, I almost fainted. You know? Like, you've been in 16 years in this same room, you know? And it's like, man, how do you find a happiness in that, you know? And they do. They do find enlightenment. And the more activities that we do and go into the correctional facilities and the more programs we have for the day that someone is released, it helps them tremendously. And I see it on the front, on the front line. And so I hope these programs never go away, because if you take someone from the South and drop them off in negative 40-degree weather, they're either going to do one or two things. They're going to go to prison or they're going to change or they're going to die, And I was just one of the lucky people that was saved, So I thank you, North Dakota. I thank you for saving my life and making me the person that I'm supposed to be. But I'll just leave you with this. There's all type of religions in the world, They say Jesus, Muhammad, the white buffalo lady. Who cares who the messenger is? Did you get the message? Thank you.
Okay, next we have Carmen Goulet. Carmen Goulet is a peer support specialist at the Ridge who brings deep lived experience and unwavering